told Stephanie it's 3 o'clock. It's 3:01.
All right, we will now call to order the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will start with the consent agenda. To approve the July 6th, 2021 Olmsted County Board meeting minutes. Proclaim July 27th as County Staff Appreciation Day. And I wanted to break with a tradition here for a minute, because normally we are not reading the proclamations. But this one, I think I want to read, because this has been a long 19 months, and I think this can't be said often enough. Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan have proclaimed July 27th, 2021 as County Staff Appreciation Day. Olmsted County staff serve as the cornerstone of this community, dedicating their time, skills, and expertise for the benefit of their neighbors. This past year and a half, Olmsted County staff went beyond expectations, taking on personal risks to continue delivering essential services to the citizens of our county during the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to their regular duties, many Olmsted County staff were called upon and accepted new and challenging responsibilities during the pandemic, such as expediting the distribution of thousands of dollars in economic recovery appropriations, empowering the survival of our local business community, successfully managing a deluge of mail-in ballots in an unprecedented federal election, and retooling local public health education outreach to flatten the curve. Although the state has turned the corner on the COVID-19 pandemic, Olmsted County staff continue their exemplary work, assisting with recovery through vaccination rollouts and preparation for the American Rescue Plan's multi-year recovery effort. The work of Olmsted County staff over the past year and a half have kept the doors of the county open and our community safer, healthier, and productive throughout months of unprecedented global transition. We honor and thank you. Wanted to.
Hear, hear.
I don't think we can say that too many times. C, approve the Olmsted County roadway sign policy. Award contract RFB 2021-102, air-cooled condenser 1, ACC 1, and air-cooled condenser 2, ACC 2, tube replacement. Approve final plat Sunset Bay Ridge, number OR 2021-001 plat, and approve gambling permit for Stewartville Sportsman Club.
Move to approve consent agenda.
Then moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Motion passes. Now we move on to the regular agenda. Discussion and decision items. Mid-year update on the 2021 annual board priorities. Mr. Geeson.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Pete Geeson, Deputy Administrator with our Physical Development Division. Just want to introduce today an update on your 2021 priorities related to two of the long-term goals which you have around maintaining the foundations of our democracy and being good stewards of our built and natural environment. The staff are here to update you on the status of those priorities. All of those except the materials recovery facility priority, those we, as you see on your agenda, is going to be a committee of the whole meeting after this meeting. But you'll hear from the others, and so most of our physical development departments are here, and we'll start off with Matt Miller.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Miller, Director of Facilities and Building Operations. The update that I'm providing is specifically on the Graham Park Master Plan and advancing that along with site development. So the goals behind that were to update the market study and master plan itself, to submit a bond request to the state legislature for a facility, and then determine the next steps for the former Seneca property. So just some quick updates here is we did complete work. We're not quite complete. We're still doing some painting on Water Tower, and we did submit a bonding request at the middle of June to MMB for the building at Graham Park. So from the market study itself, we do have a draft market study that's been completed, and I think you've seen some of these images previously that I've identified what the basis was for that bonding request. So I mentioned the building along with the multi-purpose exhibition building. It's a covered space for farmers market, and then modernizing green space or making green space improvements. Also showing here is some of the matrix or the evaluations that were done in the market study to try and to determine what was appropriate for redevelopment at Graham Park. And then at Seneca, we've still been considering, do we do a statement of interest? Do we work with Ready Rochester Area Economic Development, Inc.? Or what else do we do to move forward with the Seneca parcel? So kind of where we're headed next is we're going to make some final touches to the market study and master plan to make those updates. As I said, we still need to determine the final plan for the former Seneca site and kind of what's next there. We're hoping that over the next couple weeks we finish the work at the Seneca property, finish the water tower painting, and then we'll work on developing the last two bullets, supporting documentation for the bonding request if we do in fact get a bonding tour here later this summer or fall. So preparing for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Katie Smith with Property Records and Licensing.
Yes.
Mr. Miller, I know I've seen it, but I cannot recall. When are you anticipating the market study will be done in its final form?
So we're expecting the final market study August 1st is what we're aiming for. And then the master plan sometime in September.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Katie Smith, and I'm your Associate Director of Property Records and Licensing. I'm here today in lieu of Mark KRUPSKI. I'm going to just touch on two of the agenda items that fall underneath of our Elections Division and the board priority of maintaining the foundations of democracy. The first of which is redistricting, and we're only a piece of that puzzle. We work closely with our local planning, county attorney, and administration. The piece of that elections is responsible for, as you all know, is our adequate training and preparation so that we can complete all of the redistricting changes in the statewide voter registration system accurately and timely, which will be challenging this year because of that tight timeline. In preparation, our elections manager, Luke Turner, and I attended a course called Redistricting Basics that was put on at our annual conference by Debbie Erickson of Crow Wing County. We also joined with Ben Griffith from Planning in a demonstration of some of the latest redistricting software available from Esri and GIS. Upcoming, sorry here.
It's touchy.
Okay.
Can you Clara?
Upcoming, Luke has volunteered to serve on the Office of Secretary of State's work group for both their redistricting project as well as for their revamp of the statewide voter registration system, which is now going to be coming in 2023. We've implemented weekly training and cross-training of our property records and licensing staff. And as you'll see upcoming, we're going to request in our budget to onboard our provisional staff for the 2022 cycle a little bit early so that we can meet those deadlines of the data entry requirements. As I met with Ben Griffith from Planning in preparation of this, we just added one little bullet that for the redistricting preparation is going to happen just as soon as that census data and the state guidance is available. And we expect a really shortened timeline because of the release of the data coming much later this year. So it's going to take close coordination both with our internal departments as well as with the municipalities and townships so that we stay on schedule.
Madam Chair. I keep having, Ms. Smith, people ask me for a little bit more definitive timeline. Do we have anything about when I've read a couple different things about when the census data will be available to the state and when it will be in final form. Do you have anything
I haven't
definitive?
heard anything definitively, and when I was at conference, they also said that they haven't heard anything definitive as of yet.
Is it fair to say that what the state demographer had said that August will get preliminary data for the demographer to review in September? There's a deadline of a certain date in September for the census data to be available nationwide. Is that still the operating
That's my
parameters?
understanding also. Is that yours too, Ben?
That's as close as we
Yeah.
can tell.
Thank you.
Our
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry.
Do we have any projection of when, you're going to have to do a shortened timeline, how long it will take you, and when we need to have made decisions about redistricting in order to be ready for the election next year?
Yeah, we're looking at a time frame of approximately 3 to 4 weeks as far as the data entry time frame of it is concerned. With our internal training and cross training and with the onboarding of those provisional staff, I don't have any concerns of meeting those deadlines.
So 3 to 4 weeks to do the data entry, and then the software will project, uh, will the software then project new districts, or how does?
Oh, I apologize. That's for the actual, once it's completed for elections to complete our portion of it. Ben, do you have the time frame for your portion?
It's generally about 4 to 6 weeks, generally.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Cascaden, um, Communications is working on a website that will kind of collect these timelines once we get clarity on some of these key dates. So we'll publish it on our website to have a one-place stop for all of this information. It's just too early to nail some of this down, but we're hoping early August we'll get clarity about some of these deadlines.
And are we doing a joint response then to the League of Women Voters request?
Madam Chair, I have already responded to the League of Women's Voters to tell them that if they invite them to come in for a staff briefing. I have not heard back from them. They didn't respond.
Thank you.
But I've given them a personal, would be happy to give them a briefing, a staff briefing, so that they would be able to get any information they want, and also so they can pass along any concerns they have to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second priority is the implementation of our new Electionware software. That would be our accumulation software that actually compiles all of the votes at the end of election night into a file that we can then send to the state. Previously, we were using Unity software. Our goal this year was the thorough planning for that implementation. I made this actually within the last few weeks, but it has changed. We did our kickoff meeting and our demo. We worked closely with our vendor, and we actually already received our finalized quote now, and I signed off on it this morning. So our next steps, the install is now slated for the first quarter of 2022, and that's due to the equipment certification of the state. So we'll be working closely with the vendor to address any concerns that we have with the implementation timeline, making sure that we have adequate time for install, testing, and training. We've already, one example, been working really closely with them to make sure that we get any updated materials early so that we can prepare our election judge training in fourth quarter of this year and not have to wait. I welcome any further questions.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Thanks.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Carlin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Carlin Ziegler, your Olmsted County Parks Director. So we have some exciting things going on in parks right now. First off is our master plan updates. We are halfway through our updates. We have the Lake Zumbro Park master plan and the Root River master plans complete at this point. And we are currently working on the Chester Woods master plan, and then we will finish with the Oxbow Park master plan. By finishing with Oxbow Park, it allows us to get a little bit farther into the nature center progress, and also have a complete campground design plan complete for that as well. So by November, we are hoping to have that all set for you to approve all of them. Oop, I may have missed it out. There we go. So yeah, November is when I want to come back to have all 4 of them approved. Right now, we're just getting them approved one at a time through our physical development committee, each one at a time. So the next priority is the construction of the nature center. That is underway. All the footings are in place. We did have a little bit of a hang up on our plumbing permit, but that is now also in place and construction has resumed. And so now we are working on water lines, electrical lines, and all of the underground work that needs to be completed. So we'll continue with that. It put us about a 3-week delay waiting for those permits, but now we should be able to kind of make up a little bit of ground and pretty much stay on track. So we would see a completion of the actual nature center itself in early 2022, maybe February or so. And then we'll be working on exterior landscaping, and completion of the entire nature center inside and out should happen by midsummer of next year. And then we'll have a grand opening in the fall. So we've got a pretty good timeline going here. And all of the legacy grants are now in place. As of a couple weeks ago, we got that final piece of the puzzle for the legacy grants. So we have right around $2.4 million from legacy funding for this project. So it's great to see that last piece of the puzzle come in as well. And Friends of Oxbow is doing a really great job with their fundraising and really starting to kick that into gear too. So we should see some nice funding coming in from the Friends of Oxbow group as well. Let's see. That was it for my part of the 2 things on your list. Do you have any questions about anything for me? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Turn it on.
Good afternoon, Tony Hill, Director of Environmental Resources. I'm excited because I'm going to talk about ash utilization, and this has been 25 years in the making, and so I'm excited. I'm pumped for this. So we did, if you recall, I gave the update last year, and we went through the feasibility study, and we determined a feasibility study that there was 2 types of ash that we could look at as far as using in road mixes, and the first one was class 5 aggregate, and the second one was for hot asphalt mixes. And then as we dug deeper into the hot asphalt mixes, it just, the cost wasn't there. There was issues potentially with pollution, with emissions. And so we decided to focus, like Polk County, on the class 5 aggregate. Oh, I gotta work this. This is gonna be dangerous. Okay, here we go. So you can see, again, as we talked about last year, it's to reduce the ash landfill, the amount of ash landfill, and also extend the life of our ash cells out at the Kelmar landfill, and then also reduce the amount of virgin material that's being used. And also, as we talked about in physical development, our sustainability goals as a department, and it's meeting our sustainability goals. So, whoops. This thing is, oh.
You had it.
Sorry, I tell you, me and technology, this is not going to work.
Makes us worry about the.
Yeah. I hope not. I hope not. So on the next slide, I just wanted to show that we've done the testing. As part of the feasibility study, we did the analytical work behind this. And we determined that there's cost savings as well as the material will be easy to handle as we work through construction. All right. And then this is where the rubber meets the road. The C-Spud. So we put in the application for our determination last month in June. We're waiting to hear back from the MPCA. We're hoping approval next month on the 21st. They gave us a time estimate of the 21st. Stantec, or it used to be Wank, our primary consultant for the project, is currently working on design specifications for the project as we wait for the MPCA's approval. We're hoping around September 20th, that we'll have a demonstration project at the landfill. And if you're familiar with the landfill, it's that road, actually, it's that road that you can see in the picture, that main road in the middle. And so we're looking at about a 1/4 mile section as a demonstration out at the landfill. We'll monitor that for over 12 months, and then we'll determine if it's a feasible product to use in the roadway. So we're hoping I'll come back next year, and it'll be a successful project, and we'll begin to using ash in our roadways.
So that's the only one that's approved, right, for us to use at this point in time?
At this point, yeah, so that's for the C-Spud is the Class 5 aggregate, correct?
And then how long is testing done before they certify this to be a viable additive to bituminous and concrete, et cetera?
Yeah, so right now they've kind of given us a blanket that if this works, that they've kind of given us a blanket approval. And so we just have to demonstrate that it works. And yeah, that's a blanket approval across, because Polk County is already doing it. They did the hard work for us, and they've been doing it since about 2008.
So it's only been 12 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Hill,
Yeah.
I'm just curious about the supply of ash. Do we have to save it up, or do we use it as we produce it?
Yeah, so luckily, I mean, we can put it in the ash cell and use it as it's coming
You can
in.
dig it out again?
Yeah, and so it's only bottom ash. So we're only going to be focusing on our bottom ash. We're not going to be using fly ash at all or combined ash. It's specifically the bottom ash that we're looking at.
So we will have a steady supply chain of it.
Yep, we'll have a steady. Yeah, we produce about 25,000 cubic yards annually of ash from the OWF.
And how many miles of road do you think that will build?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, Kay, yeah.
Okay, just wondered.
Yeah, somewhere between a lot and a whole bunch.
A lot and
Yeah.
a whole bunch. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that'll get us somewhere.
Yeah, so this is exciting. That's why I'm excited. It's we're finally making headway, and this is a big step. We haven't, we gotten this far. So,
How do they decide that, said if it works, we can go ahead, but what are the criteria for, yeah, it works or it doesn't work? Or
yeah, I think the big thing is it'll go back to the roads. Whether it's a viable product to use, and the roads will be the big determining factor, and is it cost effective? And so we're hoping that both will happen.
so how do we measure durability? I mean, that's the question that goes to my mind. If we're going to use the ash as part of the aggregate, is it going to be as durable? And how would we know that within a 6-month period of time? I'm just a little confused about if we have a 6-month pilot and then we get permission to go forward. It seems like after waiting 12 years to get permission at all, a 6-month pilot may be not enough to prove the reliability or the durability of the ash as an addition.
So I'll start. Maybe Kay can jump in. But first, I mean, we have the history of Polk County. Now, Polk County's been doing it, and also nationally, other places have been doing it. And so we know that it works. And then I have been involved in a road construction project, so maybe Kay, if you can help.
Why do we have to prove it?
Yeah,
Is our ash somehow different?
that's the real question.
It's better.
So, good afternoon, Commissioners. Kay Beniak, Physical Development. So, like Tony was mentioning, we picked this road as well because it does have loads on it, coming in and out of the landfill. So that will be a good test to see if we end up with some rutting, if you end up with cracks, and some of our typical distresses. The other thing too, obviously, will be one of the things that the PCA will look at is whether or not we see anything going into the soils below. That's another thing that they would watch from Tony's perspective. But no, we have what we call pavement quality indexes. That it's a measurement. We use a band that infrared, and can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, but controls that will measure some of those kind of things in the distresses on the road.
We don't have to do all 4 seasons to know that we have.
So, like Tony mentioned, it'll run like 12 months.
Oh, I thought he said 6.
Monitor the
Okay.
project 12 months, so we'll go through a full cycle.
Yeah, and you can see it's a joint project, which is also kind of neat within physical development. So,
yeah, like Tony said, we haven't ever gotten this far before when we've kind of started to get going on this, and so it's exciting.
So you say this is going to be mixed in with class 5, so gravel basically, right? And so it'll remain a gravel road with this fly ash in there.
We'll put a bituminous surface over the top of it.
I see. Okay. So then we're going to determine whether that bituminous surface cracks, whether this rock is able to support it.
Exactly, because that's really what the foundation of a good road is our base.
Sure.
as
Okay. So no thought that it would be mixed in with a gravel road down the road, just
Correct.
okay.
yeah, and Commissioner Tyne just put a little diagram, a little illustration of what potentially what it could.
So if you were building a road, if this works, if you were building a road, they would be hauling class 5 gravel out of a rock pit and hauling ash out of our pit and then mixing them on the site to be able to put down the base. That's
Right, so if this would be successful and it's something that we want to move forward with, we would change because we go by a standard MnDOT specification for our aggregates, we would change it to a modified spec and include that a certain amount of it has to be the ash.
okay. So we would almost require it because it benefits us to save space in our landfill.
But it lowers the cost. You're not buying as much gravel from the pit.
Exactly, hopefully
Right,
it's
but
cost
if
effective.
if you're hauling in from two different places, you may not lower the cost.
You know, and if it provides some extra strength, you know, that means that we can, you know, reduce the structure of our roadways
Sure.
too. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see how it performs.
Yeah.
We think it might like cement the gravel in place.
Good.
Okay. Did they used to add fly ash to concrete all the time?
Yeah,
I remember ordering cement grout and I'd have to order it without fly ash because
from the coal, yeah, yeah,
now they can't do that.
Not a good idea.
yeah.
Right?
Hey,
Congratulations.
Tony.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been a lot, yeah. Thank you.
And who's next? Let's see.
Ben Griffith.
Ben. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'm Ben Griffith. I'm an Olmsted County Planning Director. And the priority for being good stewards of our built and natural environments is something that in the planning department we take very seriously, and just about everything we do centers on that priority. And I hope I do this right. I did. This year we have two large projects that are underway. As you all well know, one of them is our general land use plan update, or as Sandy Gosley has named it, the GLUP date. So a lot of people kind of remember that. And the other is started this year, is beginning to gather data on an open space system plan. And this project was begun earlier this year, and it kind of grew out of some discussions and conversations on what we're doing and how we do it with our park system, and how our built and how our natural environment is current its current use and its potential use. And what we've looked at, we've looked at some earlier studies that were done, I believe in the 90s, and they were kind of set aside, and some more timely, more time sensitive projects were undertaken. So we've kind of picked those up, and we've begun to move forward to get an idea of how an open space system plan would look now, and how it would work in conjunction with our park system as well. And I'm getting ahead of myself. No, I'm not. So there's three main headings that we kind of begun to focus on, and they're economic, environmental, and social. And if you look at this, oops, I went too quick. If you look at this next slide with this Venn diagram, you can kind of, we came across this in some of our research, and this really sewed it together really nice for us. And it's simple to understand, and you can kind of see how the components work together. And all three of them kind of come together and form sustainability. And that's something that the board has made a priority, and we've looked at going forward for things that we do. So it just works and dovetails together really well. So what our next steps are is we've begun doing basic research as far as data collection and inventory of different properties throughout the county. Our next steps would be to establish a steering committee to provide some guidance for going forward and what we do and how we do it. We've been working with various other departments, and the PAC team has been involved with kind of coming up with a mission or a vision, and how we develop public engagement based on what was done in the past and what would need to be done in the future. One of the most important things we feel is identifying funding resources, and we found that there's a lot of funding resources out there, but you really have to hustle and compete with a lot of other folks around the state for them. So we feel like we're in a good position to be able to do that, but having a system plan really helps. And I I think Carlin has really found that with the parks work. So a lot of those would be in conjunction with some of the same groups or some of the same folks that she deals with at the state level. So this is a good way to tie it all together. So this is really just getting started and getting underway. So just for a couple of months now. So this is kind of a new project, but it really ties a lot of other work together. And we feel like that as we get something together to present to y'all in more detail, it'll be something that can go very far in the future. So with that, if y'all have any questions, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Griffin, help me understand, an open space plan is that to preserve open spaces that aren't necessarily available for any kind of development, including parkland, or is it just to document what's available for whatever purpose?
All of the above. All of the above. When we talk about that, it's generally it's passive use. So it's not developing for any type of program or programmatic types of uses. It's we kind of like to refer to it. It's connecting the dots. You know, you have parks and you have other amenities that are out there, and the open space can connect the dots, and it can provide wildlife corridors. It can also provide stormwater and groundwater protection. It can also provide connections for trails and other types of amenities as well. There's a lot of different uses that you can wrap into it. So that's what there's so much out there. We're trying to get a better focus for what's going to apply for us right here.
And is that external to any municipality's boundaries, or are you going to include open space within a municipality's boundaries?
What we've done so far is what's in the counties, but we've kept in mind what the state has as far as assets and what the cities have as well. And when I say that in a general way, I'll say trail infrastructure or proposed, because the state has a lot of corridors that are identified, but nothing physically built at this time.
So when the city of Rochester talks about looking for available lots would not be considered part of open space, or could they be?
I guess they could be, but when we look at that, we try to look at we look at it from the aspect of how they could be preserved and not developed per se as for infrastructure type development or for hard development.
So I think that's what I'm wondering. I think now I'm getting clarity that it's about preservation of open space rather than identification for future planning or development.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. There's no further questions. I will hand it off to Ben Johnson. Get both Bens back to back. There he is. That thing's tricky. Be careful.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ben Johnson, Public Works. I'll be talking about our County State Highway 44 and Trunk Highway 14 interchange project. As many of you know, the west side of Rochester, there's our County State Highway 44 or 60th Avenue corridor that intersects with Trunk Highway 14 at a skewed angle, and high traffic volume, speed, and geometrics present significant safety concerns at that intersection. And if you've driven through there during rush hour, I'm sure you know the safety concerns. Our 2021 objective for the project is get started on preliminary design and environmental documentation for the project, and also begin some public engagement, and then continue to pursue construction funding for the project. Progress to date in 2020, the legislative session awarded Olmsted County with $6 million in GO bonds to get started with the preliminary design and environmental documentation, and also awarded MnDOT District 6 some trunk highway bonds in the amount of $2.5 million to also work on that preliminary design and environmental documentation along with right-of-way acquisition for the project. We've also submitted paperwork to legislators to consider the project for congressionally dedicated federal funding as well. And then efforts have we've begun working on our request for proposals, and we'll actually be issuing that out to consultants later this week to get proposals back to start on the design. And then we're also working with MnDOT on a joint powers agreement that will come after that, the work with the consultants. Next steps in the project, continue advocacy for construction funding, primarily for the MnDOT portion of the construction funding for the project, and then work on the joint powers agreement with MnDOT, and then begin preliminary design services or work along with the environmental documentation. And our challenges, obviously, MnDOT has no funding for the project. It's not in their 10-year plan, so they haven't budgeted for it. So it's working to get funding for their portion of the construction. Any questions?
So what's the strength of a joint powers agreement if it's not even recognized in MnDOT's plan? I mean, I understand they don't have the money, but to not even list it as part of their 10-year plan to give us some leverage relative to pursuing bonding and other sources, just the whole thing is convoluted. We've been pushing our way through this and we're making progress to without much help from MnDOT. Right. So I mean, the joint powers agreement, we need it, right? MnDOT wants it, but they still won't put it in their 10-year plan anymore.
Right. Just to share in the consultant services costs would be what it would be for.
So is it not in the 10-year plan because they don't see any way to provide funding or support it within that 10-year plan, right? Is that really the essence of?
Right, they just don't have the budget for it, and they won't trade something out to put it in there.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And who's next?
I think I'm the last one.
You're the last one. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And now, Mr. Tim Penny, Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation presentation.
Thank you much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tim Penny, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. I appreciate the opportunity each year to present an update on the work of our foundation here in Southern Minnesota. As I've mentioned in past years, we are a regional economic and community development foundation. We've been around now 35 years, and in our most recent iteration over the last dozen years or so, we really concentrated our focus in the areas of early childhood needs within the region, and then as a partner in economic development activity here in the region. We expend roughly, in a typical year, $5 million of resources across those program areas. We do some grant making in the early childhood space, and in the last fiscal year, about $59,000 worth of grants came to several organizations in your county to enhance and improve early childhood offerings. That includes helping Listos Preschool and Child Care expand, also a grant to Boys and Girls Club, the Dover Yoda Public Schools, Families First, a good partner of ours in the region, the Rochester Y, and the Stewartville Public Schools. All of those grants were used to enhance and improve early childhood activities among the families that they serve. We also have a partnership with the AmeriCorps program, and out of that partnership, we are able to hire a number of people each year to work in the early childhood setting, and for many years we've had someone stationed at the Stewartville Public Schools to, again, work with families and with children in the early childhood setting. We have a partnership with two publishing companies in southern Minnesota, Abdo and Capstone, both out of Mankato, to distribute roughly 25,000 early reader books each year to 70 or 80 organizations. In the previous fiscal year, $40,000 worth of books were made available to Rochester Public Schools, the YMCA, Stewartville Public Schools, the Reading Center, as well as the Child Care and Family Resource Center, and then 4 Kiwanis clubs here in town were among the 70, 80 participants of those books. In the last year, 32,000 books made available to the Byron Public Schools, Olmsted County Public Health, the Rochester Area Y, Stewartville Public Library, Stewartville Public Schools, and the Children's Museum here in town. And again, all of these books are perfect for that preschool age population, and all of these are tied to programs that really work on teaching literacy at that preschool age, so they come to kindergarten ready to learn. Beyond that, we do our economic development work, and in the last year, $40,000 worth of grants were made available to organizations in your county, including the Diversity Council, the Somali American Social Service Association, and the Village Community Garden Center, all of which helped them to pursue and advance some economic development projects that were important to their constituency. And then we do some lending, and here again, the list of lending partners is quite long if you go back over time, but in the last year alone, Blue Moon Ballroom, Healing Touch, Muna Halal Restaurant, Enhanced Salon, Finbrew, Fiddlehead Coffee, Busy Baby out of Orinoco, which was on Shark Tank about a month ago, Manny Millwright, Squash Blossom Farm. So we usually are involved in startup businesses or early stage businesses to help them grow, and we often do these in either on referral from or in partnership with local banks or local EDAs, and we have worked with your county and your city EDA here in Rochester frequently over the past. Last but not least, in the economic development area of our work, we are heavily involved with a local foods collaborative around this region that culminates in a training program for local food producers and processors each year. It also culminates in a local foods feast festival that we've always held at the Mayo Civic Center. And we get like 1,500 people to attend, about 50 institutional buyers to attend, just a way of highlighting and supporting the local food sector here in southeastern Minnesota. Other than that, I did want to mention last year was an especially busy year for us because we were tasked with providing some additional assistance that grew out of the COVID economic crisis we all came through. So in April a year ago, we distributed several hundred grants to early childhood providers to make them make adjustments at that time to improve, enhance their safety and health protocols, et cetera. In total, 110 early childhood providers in your county got grants from that program, totaling about $54,000 worth of grants. And then the state of Minnesota, with federal dollars, allocated small business recovery grants to our foundation to distribute in this region. I know the county, the city also got some dollars for that purpose and used it effectively. But in our case, it allowed us to distribute in total 1,024 small business recovery grants. And of that number, 225 of those grants came to businesses in your county, totaling $2.25 million. We know that the legislature approved another round of grant dollars, of which we will probably get another allocation of several million to distribute across this region, and we'll be doing that work over the next several weeks. And we also have been informed that the legislature allocated dollars for addressing the early childhood shortage to us and the other 5 rural foundations, and we'll be putting that money to good use in the coming year as we help communities wrestle with that child care shortage issue. So that's kind of who we are and what we do. That's the update. And as always, I want to thank you for the ongoing support from the county. All of the 20 counties in our service region do provide some level of support for our work, and we view that as a reflection of the partnership that we have in advancing these initiatives and these economic development efforts here in southern Minnesota.
That's all you do?
That's it.
Wow. That's it. So impressive.
Well,
What you do for us.
I once heard that Hubert Humphrey was giving a speech in my home county, and the local newspaper reporter arrived like an hour late, and someone coming out the door as she was arriving, she asked, "What's he talking about?" And the joking response was, "He hasn't gotten around to that yet." So when this news reporter told me that story all those years ago when I first got involved in politics, I resolved to learn how to give the same speech in 5 15 and 50-minute increments. So I think I stuck closer to the 5 minutes with you today, and I do appreciate the opportunity to present.
Nice to
So
see you, Tim.
appreciative of your foundation.
Madam Chair, I'd just like
Yes.
to say thank you to the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation because it's one of the most respected foundations and really does drive home the money that's needed at the end of the spectrum to grow things, to get things going, and to really just serve the needs of the people. So thank you very much.
Madam Chair, of course, I always have a curiosity question. And earlier this year, I was involved in a number of conversations about the childcare shortage, and was pleased to see that the legislature has recognized it, but didn't really have a clarity about solution. And I wondered if the Initiative Foundation and Families First have some clarity about what you see as the needs are to remedy the problem or the opportunities to remedy our shortage in
Yeah,
Southern
and Families First has been a great partner with us, as has First Children's Finance, and we work very collaboratively. In fact, our motto at the foundation is collaborating for regional vitality. So in anything that I've described here, we're doing our best to be a partner and to complement and supplement what others are doing on these same issues. In terms of the shortage, there's no one size fits all. Larger towns can easily, so I shouldn't say easily, but can more easily support center-based care. But you get into the smaller communities, and that's a bigger challenge. So what we do with the dollars we allocate toward the child care shortage issue is we go in and we have someone on our staff that's really expert at the business side of child care, and we help them walk through their options and get realistic about what will work in their town. Let me give you one example. Wells, Minnesota had no early childhood providers, a town of about 2,000. But there were a couple people that would like to do it, but they just weren't so sure they wanted to do it in their home with all the remodeling and the rest they'd have to go through. By facilitating community dialogues, we identified that the community bank in town had backspace that they weren't using for their own needs, but it was perfect for 2 childcare rooms where they could share the other amenities, the kitchenette and all the rest. And so that became the solution for Wells. So what I'm saying is that when we get this additional allotment from the legislature, we'll have roughly $250,000 to support that individual's work with other towns around the region that are exploring options and to help them find the solution that works for them. Where we're also working very closely with Families First and First Children's Finance is on the quality side. And so we do dozens of early childhood provider trainings every year at no cost to the providers. Of course, last year we did them all by Zoom, but we're back in person and some Zoom this coming fall. Several hundred childcare providers take advantage of these trainings every year so that they can improve their quality, improve the educational benefits that they're bringing to the children in their care. And it is at no cost to them, so they can get the lion's share of their continuing ed credits and keep their licensure at no cost. And so that's the other benefit we bring to the region. Childcare is one thing, but we want it to be quality. And we're working right now in both Rochester and Faribault with largely Hispanic populations or neighborhoods where there's a lot of family friends childcare going on, but we want that to be quality as well. So we've got some training programs going in now that are dedicated to those folks who aren't necessarily even licensed. Because here again, we want them to be the best they can be in the care of these children.
Thank you.
Is that more than you needed?
No.
It gives you an idea of shortage is one thing, but quality has to be tied to it.
It's good that you work Wells, Minnesota, and Deer.
Well,
very nice.
If I were a more calculating politician, I would have brought Wells up knowing of your connection. But it was just a good example to bring forward.
Thank you. Any other?
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Madam Chair, at least Commissioner Wright didn't claim that they used to have really excellent early childhood and he's the product of it.
We know better.
Of very little child care. My mother loved my brother more than I did, so I was pretty much left on my own.
Oh boy.
That shows. Thank you for clarifying.
You're not bitter about that, are you?
No,
No.
not
You understand her position.
Yeah, now I do. It's all clear to me
You're from the
now.
family therapist. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I lived through it as a child. I can take it now.
It's time for board and committee reports. Could start with Commissioner Beer.
Been a pretty slow week, not too much.
Okay.
I was out of town, nothing to report.
Nothing.
Unless you want a slideshow, I've got
No.
slides.
Yeah, we'd like to see that. So we're ahead of time. Commissioner Flynn, sounds like you have a cold.
Yes, I do. No, sorry. No, I have nothing to report either. I give my time to Sheila.
Can I bank this time, Madam Chair, for a future meeting? That
No.
he's- Okay, he's
No.
giving me 5 minutes of time for a future meeting. Okay.
Sometimes she's gonna say no report. And
I was
this
gonna
will-
say that today, but he gave, now he's giving me
No,
5
no,
minutes.
no, we're
Oh,
done.
no,
All right,
we're
keep
done.
going. Greg.
I think she passed.
Commissioner Wright?
I just, last meeting, it was fairly short, or it was long, and so we didn't have time at the end. But I did distribute the age-friendly Olmsted County report to you at the last meeting, and you might want to take a look at that if you want. And I'm sure that the folks will be back to report Olmsted County. And the reason why it's important is because Olmsted County was the government agency that provided the means for them to have their committee. So I appreciate that, and I think that the report's really good, and we'll hear from them later on. Thanks.
All right, now it's down to me. And I did want you to know that I went to the NACO, National Association of Counties, conference in National Harbor, Washington, D.C. And one of the reasons I went was because Olmsted County was recognized for a 2021 Achievement Award for its program titled Olmsted County Pretrial Release Program. And this is a wonderful program that we're doing, and it's nice to be recognized for that. I did also make connections with commissioners from Waseca County and from Blue Earth County, so I spent my time as diligently as I could, put it that way.
It's a nice place to stay.
It's a nice place to stay. It was very hot, very, very hot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like,
Humid.
yeah, I would not want to live there in the summer. I understand why they recess. All right.
It's got nothing to do with the weather.
No. Okay, so that's our committee reports. And, oh, yes, I wouldn't want to, because we're all traveling, I thought I would have a very brief quote from Ray Bradbury, who said, "Half the fun of the travel is the aesthetic of lostness." Say that again. Half the fun of the travel is the aesthetic of lostness.
He must have traveled with Dick Devlin at one time.
Wait, there's a star. Yes.
Must have been before Google Maps.
Maps.
Devlin was before Google Maps.
Adjourn.
Okay. That's all those in favor of adjourn?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we now have a committee of the whole. Let's take a 5-minute break.